Hello, this is Chris Park from Arcane Games. This is another section for the GUI focus group. All right, so let's talk. This time we're ignoring this central stuff with the galaxy map, and for the most part, anyway, we're going to be focusing on the bottom interface. Now, this is us when we are trying to start a new game, and this is skimpy already, so that's kind of a given. And there's some things from AI War Classic that you'll notice are missing, like some of the sidebar bits for well, for one thing, like player chat, but also things like showing the list of players and what their colors are. Like that would be kind of nice to have in a sidebar, I think. But then again, we've got some people who've noted that they hate all um, RTS interfaces. Is that part you hate? If so, tell us. Give us your better idea. RTS interfaces are not my favorite thing either, which is part of why I try and do things a little bit differently. And so if you've got a better way to do it, by all means, I would love that. Now, that said, this particular interface is always one of the nastiest in the game because, and unfortunately, it's the first one that's of any substance that people run into, because there's so much stuff that you could theoretically want to customize. And we don't want to make it so that you can't customize things. So that means that we're going to have interface nesting of some sort, inevitably. There's just no way around that. So questions come up immediately. What do we nest? What do we show? Right on the front. What in an ideal world, in my opinion, we would be able to have kind of all the basic stuff shown without a whole lot of clicking around, and the average new player who comes in is just kind of like, all right, cool, I get what's going on. Like I can make a couple of tweaks here and feel like I'm fairly informed. And then everybody else, there's like an advanced toggle net or button or link or something next to practically everything, probably. And they're able to kind of click in that and make a variety of changes. But for those people who are doing advanced stuff, we're not necessarily wanting to, how many clicks does it take to accomplish something? For instance, with the map type clusters here right now, this is pretty handy. We've got the map thing, and I can choose. All right, I've got clusters. What type of clusters I want? Small clusters. Fine. Okay. Now these are small. We've already talked about, this generating and the centering and all that. That's a totally separate topic. Let's keep that in that other thread. But that was already kind of pissing me off just now. But yeah, I can go ahead and change that and go, these look better, these look worse, whatever. What does microcosm mean? Oh, I see. Huh, neat. And all right, so large. Maybe I like that better, maybe I don't. How about we randomize what? What did we just randomize? Oh, we randomized the map seed, All right, cool. Well, so these are different options. Okay, cool. These are all from clusters large. I'm randomizing that. Already, I feel like that was a little bit confusing. The tooltip, I like that. Tooltips in general are something I like. But the map types, though, having some sort of tooltips for, what do these things mean would be nice. I noticed that the mouse scroll, instead of working in the drop down, is working on the game view. So that's not too helpful. If I'm scrolling in and out here, I'm thinking the game view should probably scroll in and out, because I'm not necessarily paying attention to where my mouse is if I'm not explicitly over some sort of list. So that part makes sense. This generate button, why is there a big generate button? The players aren't necessarily going to know. This is just recreating the same thing basically, except there's a few bits that are randomized, namely the background. Why is the background randomized separately from the map seed? I don't really know. Probably that's my thing because the types of backgrounds that you might have color wise are different on your machine compared to the types that the host or another client might have. The reason for that is that some people prefer darker ones or lighter ones or don't care. They're allowing all of them. And so if you've turned off the lighter ones like this, then you wouldn't then when this gets generated, I would see this and you would see something else, and that's fine. So that's pretty much the map section. Is the map section what we need to be seeing first? Maybe. But is it necessarily the most important thing? I don't know. Before we had the sidebar over here on the right. Should it still be there? Maybe. To some extent, people read from, not to some extent, people who read English read from right to left. So putting it on the left could potentially make sense. That way, there's something you see before you start seeing the map type stuff. I don't know. Should this map type stuff be up at the top? That would feel a little weird to me, but that's just me. This whole thing with the edge scrolling, I keep accidentally bumping it. That's pretty annoying. Do we need edge scrolling in this particular screen? Well, I don't know. If you're using the mouse key, the arrow keys rather, and the WSAD to scroll around, I think most people would probably figure that out. Plus, you can, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, which a lot of people are pretty accustomed to doing. So, do we need edge scroll in this screen? Given how often we're moving the mouse cursor down near the edges for various purposes, my contention is that we should turn off edge scrolling for this screen. If somebody strongly disagrees with that, and they're like, oh my God, I just can't function without edge scrolling in here, we could always make this an option in settings that probably defaults to not having edge scrolling in here. On the regular Galaxy map during the game, having edge scrolling is the thing that's default on. Sure, fine. I buy that. I don't use it. I turn it off. But having that on, I could see that being a thing. For purposes of the lobby, I think that ditching that is probably going to help us more than anything else. Okay, so next thing up is factions. Okay, this is the sidebar that you would be expecting to see before. However, now it's like blocking half my view. I really don't like that. We've also got these colors here, which this is really wide. Why is it so wide? I don't know. We've got these things here, the AI Sentinels. Players not going to know what the heck that means. We need a tooltip to tell them. The Warden fleet and the Hunter fleet. The fact that the Sentinels and the Warden fleet and the Hunter fleet are broken out separately is super cool. However, players are going to need some explanation of what that is. For anybody who's watching, the AI Sentinels means the AI, like the bad guys. Before we had 2 AIs in the first game, now there's just one, but there's a bunch of sub-factions. Now, they're 2 of the factions. The Warden fleet is basically like the Special Forces commandos from before, and the Hunter fleet is basically like the threat fleet from before. There's a lot more to it than that, but for purposes of this video, let's leave it at that. You can then also select other factions that you can add in, like the Devourer, Golem, Dyson Sphere, Zenith Trader, Nanocost, etc. How many of these factions can we add? It looks like we're limited to a certain number of slots, which I don't like that. That feels weird. We've got the Human Remnant, which it feels a little weird that that's a drop down I could select from. I mean, that's me. I'm assuming that instead of Human Remnant, I should be seeing like X4000 there. And like if my dad joins in, I should see like Dune. And if Keith joins in, I should see Keith. Is that going in these same slots here? I don't really know how that's going to function. How many minor factions might there be? If we're 4 expansions in 6 years from now and we've added like a bajillion minor factions, are we limiting you to only having these? That doesn't seem wise, but do we really want to start introducing scroll bars in here? I don't think we're going to want to do that. So what do people suggest who are UI designers? We're assuming that we're going to have n number of players. We're definitely having the AI. We're definitely having the Warden fleet and the Hunter fleet. Those can't be gotten rid of. Those are core part of the game. And then we're having some n number of other factions that are also either friendly to the humans, neutral to the humans, or enemies with humans. It doesn't matter. All of these things have a variety of things in common. They have the ability to have a color, and you can give the same color to. Oh God, that scrolling gets me. Um, Lord. You can give the same color. I've got a secondary mouse that's doing some funky scrolling at the moment. You can do some if you want to set your maybe not. Oh, interesting. So it shows those in that color. That's kind of neat. All right. So okay, nifty. So that's kind of neat. But then it makes the background colors of these lines extra difficult to deal with. All right. So I just learned something new. This has gone through some evolution recently. On the human side, for you specifically, your player, you can choose what your arc is going to be. There's no real difference between these except for how they visually look. Um, I guess it would be nice ultimately to have tooltips that show what do these things look like. So we probably ought to take a little screenshot of each one and say, here's what it looks like, here's what that looks like, here's what this looks like, because that's what people want to know, is because this is only affecting visually how does it look. And so with that in mind, um, there are going to be 12, I think, arcs by the time we are to 1.0 or shortly after, because of the number of backers that requested custom arcs that backed at that tier and that are therefore entitled to one, which then becomes available for everybody. And so we've got Arc 1 and the Rorqual Hagira. I noticed that this is using the internal name and therefore not spacing or localization or anything rather than the real name. That's something we need to fix. So then we've got under the Warden fleet and the Hunter fleet. Oh, okay, interesting. Normal and normal. Well, that doesn't tell me much, but okay. Here underneath the AI type, we've got these. Yeah, this is the AI type, but my understanding is that we've got like some sub AI types like all over the place, and I'm not really sure what this does, and this doesn't give me any explanation in a tooltip of what the individual ones even mean. So that's frustrating. Um, and it's regenerating these planets every time I make these sort of changes because it's actually populating the planets fully. We got to stop that. When I click more, then suddenly all of this stuff pops up. For the Sentinels, this is what it's got. Man, my screen is just all blocked up now. Which, in fairness, Keith was implementing this in a way to get it done and have it be functional and not even really trying to make it organized well, because spending a lot of effort on trying to make this organized well is a waste of time when we know we're just going to reorganize it. So we may as well just get it on there. So please definitely cut him some slack on that. So we have the difficulty here. I think Badger has already mentioned that we really don't want to have the difficulty hidden underneath more because a lot of people are not going to click that. I think I like more compared to advanced, and I do like how there's more next to all of these. Wave warning, medium. I like that like all of these different things are available here, and um, with tooltips, this could be pretty handy. Um, I do feel like making it so that certain things are bigger than others so that it's more obvious like what's really important, or doing something with layout to make it so that it's obvious like here's the box of like super duper key stuff and here's the secondary things would be nice. um Whether one of the things that's nice about this approach that Keith took is, yes, my vision is severely restricted right now. However, I can still do all the things that I might want to do, and that's kind of nice. It's not like one of the Civ games or something where I have literally clicked into a submenu screen that has taken away my entire lobby screen, and therefore, if I want to make a change in that submenu screen, I have to like make several clicks in, click some stuff, come back out, see how it looks. If I don't like that, click back in, etc. I can still do all of these things. My screen is getting increasingly cluttered. However, yeah. So is that good? I don't know. There, that there's some pros and some cons for that. Um, we clearly need to not have partially see-through panels here because like the AI Hunter fleet, I can barely read that there. I feel like if it was just solid black, then I'd at least be able to read it. Okay, so we've got more options for these, and basically we've got the difficulty and stuff. It would, well, okay, for the Hunter fleet and the Warden fleet and so forth. Um, these are like if somebody decided they wanted to code some custom modded logic for one of the two of them, then you can add more. And it's kind of like an AI type for your Warden fleet or for your Hunter fleet or something like that. And to a certain extent, I feel like the more advanced option is not difficulty, but is actually the AI type. That's probably what we should put under more, to be honest. Because if we leave everybody on vanilla to start out with, vanilla is great to start out with. Why not? Why wouldn't it be great? That's the default. Everything's around for the most part, but it's not doing anything real super crazy in one particular direction. Let's talk about difficulty. You know what I mean? So that, I think, makes sense. Put difficulty out here, put the special type stuff in there, and we're off to the races. And the fact that you can set the difficulty for these three groups separately would be nice. And me having to explain to you what the heck the AI Sentinels are versus the Warden fleet versus the Hunter fleet is something that we, um, need tooltips for. The fact that that is called AI Sentinels is something that bugs me personally. I don't know about you guys. Like from a lore standpoint, that's awesome. That's cool. I have no problems. But from an interface standpoint, when I see AI Sentinels, that doesn't say to me that's the AI in a global sense. To me, that should just say the AI on here. If it wants to say the AI in a generalized sense is called the AI Sentinels, and if elsewhere in the game it calls them the AI Sentinels or something, that's fine with me. But I think that when people come into a game like this, they're like, who's the computer? Like, who's the computer opponent? Oh, the AI. That makes sense. Oh, there's some other AIs in here as well. AI Warden Fleet, AI Hunter Fleet. That makes sense. When I see AI Sentinels, I'm going, are these my three opponents? Or like are these guys on the same level? Or which one is like the chief thing? You know what I mean? And so that bugs me. Look at that. Got a null reference exception. Fun times. So then we've got options. Um, and here's where the wheels start to fall off as well, because there's like a million options in the first AI war. You've seen that lobby. it's the sort of thing that people would sometimes like start up the game, get to the lobby, go, oh dear lord, and like quit. We don't want that experience. However, we do still want not just the same number of options as before, but even more. And we want to make it so that it's easy to add options. So that means not having some really specific layout that is like super duper um, artistically engineered, let's say, because we want room for just throwing in options. And if somebody makes a mod and they want to put some options in here, then fine, whatever. It should just be able to kind of go in here. But how do we do that without being super overwhelming? It's certainly nice that this is not the default thing people are seeing when they come in, but potentially we don't need a sidebar. Potentially we just need the factions thing to be here, but not be so darn wide, and have that always here. And then when they need to do something with the map, they can click to the map. But the only people who are going to be messing with the map are the host anyway. And as far as chat, it's kind of nice to have the chat always on the screen, but if you are in single player, the chat is somewhat pointless. Hey, though, one thing that could be really useful is making it so that every time a change is made, it logs that in the chat. So there's actually a purpose to the chat log, even in single player. I could see that as being really useful, because sometimes I'm sitting here and I'm going random, random, random. Oh, shoot, man, that last one was actually really good. Why did I click random again? Darn it. Well, that's gone forever. But if it was saying clicked random and the map seed was whatever, then I can go, whew, okay, I missed that one, but just copy, paste, generate, and there we are. Back to that thing I just missed. And that's one of those things that I often wanted in the first game, was being able to go back to something after I had kind of like, I think this is good as I can get, but let's just see if we can generate something a little bit better. And the starting bonus ship and all that you started with before was a thing. I don't think you start with a bonus ship anymore. You start with some science instead, and you can unlock some different things. But that's kind of a separate topic that somebody may want to bring up. But it's how is that going to impact the number of possible starting scenarios that people are running into if you're not having anything more than a custom visuals for your arc that you're choosing for yourself, and then like stuff for the AI, obviously. But it was really different if I started with um, vampire claws versus parasites or something like that. It would change the whole flavor of the game. And if I chose parasites, that meant that only I had them, and we weren't going to cumulatively discover parasites together in a multiplayer game and thus all have them. And so there was a pro and a con to that. Now, there's a very strong argument that could be made that throwing that sort of decision at people right from the get-go before they even start the game is a really negative thing for a new player, because it's confusing and they're like, well, I don't know, random, I guess, and I feel like I'm being asked to make an expert level decision before I've even gotten in there. It's kind of like some of those RPG creation screens with mainly the Western CRPGs, where they're asking you like a million questions about your character and your stats and stuff. And you're like, I don't even know what intelligence is good for in this particular game. Like, is it the same as D&D, or is this something else? Like, what is this? So, it is possible that maybe we need to introduce that as a decision for players, like after they've taken their first planet or something. Then they're like, hey, you've earned a bonus ship. Which one would you like? Something like that builds it into the game instead of builds it into the interface. Then again, maybe we should handle it some other way. I don't know. That's it. Now we're getting into a question of gameplay, and that's trickier. It could be an options thing where normally you don't start with a bonus ship at all, or normally it just gives you something. It gives everybody something basic. I don't know. Gives everybody armor ships or something. Gives everybody spiders. That'd be pretty useful. But then if you click under I'm guessing there would be like a more thing here next to your or an advanced or something like that next to your name. Instead of human remnant, I'm seeing my own name. You click into that and it's saying like, oh, did you want something specific? And that then raises another question, which again, we're getting into gameplay stuff, but this is inextricable of, okay, if since it's no longer you click on a planet and that determines your starting position as well as the bonus ship that you get at the start. If I'm choosing that I want vorticular cutlasses, and Keith chooses he wants vorticular cutlasses, and my dad chooses that he wants vampire claws, is it okay? Can Keith and I share that? What happens when we get an unlock of a new ship type later? Is vorticular cutlass off the table? Like, that's not okay for any of us to like get as part of the thing we just hacked? Or what about vampire claws? Only one of us has that. Is that okay to get? And it's like, what if we want to what if I want vampire claws as my second unlock? I don't know. There's some weirdness that goes on with that, especially if everybody's getting the same unlock in multiplayer whenever something new is unlocked, and that's arguably not something that should happen. I think we were doing a thing at one point where it was like, congratulations, you've hacked a, terminal. Which of these three things do you want? And if it offers a different three options to every player just randomly, that'd be kind of cool anyway, because then we're further differentiating ourselves the longer we play. We may or may not have things that overlap. It's definitely not offering me anything that I already have, but it may or may not offer me the same things that Keith either has or is being offered, and he can choose what he chooses and I can choose what I choose, and we wind up entirely personalized. Versus in the first game, when we started doing unlocks, then okay, I started with vorticular cutlasses. Keith started with laser gatlings. My dad had vorticular or vampire claws, and then we unlocked armor ships for everybody, and we all now have armor ships. Then we unlocked parasites. Now we all have that, and so our differentiation diminished. Techs aside and that sort of thing. But where we spend our science. Right. So that's a whole lot of stream of consciousness about both the lobby and how that plays into the gameplay itself, because anything we can get out of the lobby and make not be a setting in a drop down and instead be something that organically comes about through gameplay, that's obviously a very good thing. So for instance, you capture your first planet, you're given immediately a choice of bonus ship type, then that's probably pretty nice for players too. Some of the newer Western RPGs have done that sort of thing where it's like, here, you're in the story now, and this is you. Like you've customized how you looked, I guess, because you wanted to. And all right, this is what your character looks like now. Go play. And then a little while in, it's like, all right, you've played for a little while. Now you want to be an archer or a mage or whatever, and a warrior. And then you choose and you have some basis of understanding of what that even means. And then later it's like, all right, you've gotten your first like skill points. Where do you want to put that? And here's what it means. You're like, okay, cool. I actually have a frame of reference for what all this means. Like the lobby shouldn't need a tutorial. um, and yeah, so how small can we make this lobby while at the same time giving more options than before? That is the ultimate question. Um, and some of that is going to bleed over into discussions of early game gameplay by necessity. So this is going to be a mixed up, complicated discussion. Um, this is one of the nastiest areas of the GUI in the first game, um, both to update and to mess with as a player. So I never had any expectation it would be any different this time. All right, thanks for watching. This is way too long again.